So I would also like to mention that there was a notable overlap between the topics in the actual exam and our Smash Essay Test series. It highlights how well prepared our students could have been had they practiced these essays and brainstormed along with us. A great example of this is Stanford prison experiment conducted by Philip Zimbardo in 1971. In this study, ordinary people were assigned roles as guard in a stimulated prison, and within days these participants started abusing their powers. They became authoritarian and abusive, showing how quickly power can distort someone's moral judgment. For instance, the Stoics have always believed that true happiness comes from accepting the present and letting go of the desire of external rewards, focusing on the well-being of its people rather than purely economic growth. Concept of democracy. The simple idea that people should have the power to elect their leaders. While it's a straightforward concept, it has led to profound political consequences, transforming governments and societies worldwide. Hi everyone, I hope your essay paper went well today. For those of you who just finished the essay paper, let's break down what we saw in the paper today. We will be touching upon the difficulty level, and I'll also give you a brief understanding of each topic to help you reflect on your choices. So this year's paper presented a balanced mix of philosophical and issue-based topics. On the surface, the topics may appear as abstract, but they are grounded in real-world implications as well. Particularly some of the topics like forests precede civilizations and deserts follow them. These topics require not just philosophical thought, but also an understanding of historical, environmental, and societal trends. So coming to the difficulty level of the exam, I would say this paper was moderate because in each section there was at least one topic that you could have easily attempted. So I would also like to mention that there was a notable overlap between the topics in the actual exam and our Smash Essay Test series. This is very significant because it highlights how well prepared our students could have been had they practiced these essays and brainstormed along with us. So out of the 8 topics, 3 overlapped with the questions in our test series. So the topic 2 from section A of the essay paper, that is the empires of the future will be the empires of mind, had a strong overlap with a question from our essay test series, that was the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Now another topic from section B, the topic 7, that was all ideas having large consequences are always simple, was closely mirrored by a question in our essay test series, that was simplicity is the last refuge of complex. Now another topic from section B, that was the last topic in the essay paper, that is the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing, also had a thematic overlap with a question that we asked in Smash Essay Test series, that was the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who in a period of moral crisis maintain their neutrality. So these topics from both from section A and section B could have been easily attempted by the students because we had not only discussed the model answers but brainstormed the topic effectively from multiple dimensions. So it would have been easy for those students to attempt these topics. Now let us begin the discussions on the questions. So let us start by focusing on the topic forests precede civilizations and deserts follow them. So what this essentially means is that forests have always played a crucial role in rise of human civilizations. Forests provides us with food, water, and other resources needed to survive and grow as a society. And in history as well, we see that wherever forests have thrived, so did the civilizations. But when people started to misuse or destroy these forests, that is when the balance was lost. And what followed was environmental degradation, leading to desert-like conditions, both literally and metaphorically. So if we take the example of Harappan civilization, one of the oldest advanced societies which existed along the Indus River, it flourished in its time because of the fertile land and forest resources. But as deforestation and environmental changes set in, the region started facing soil degradation and a reduced water supply as well. So this led to the downfall of the once thriving society. This is a prime example of how civilizations rely heavily on forests, and when we disrupt that balance, it eventually leads to a collapse. In today's world, this message is extremely relevant because we're seeing similar trends of environmental destructions that could lead to dire consequences for us. Now, if we have to break down the quote, so, what does forests precede civilizations and deserts follow them really mean? In simple terms, it tells us that forests come first in the process of building a society because they provide everything needed for a civilization to grow, be it food, water, shelter, and a balanced ecosystem as well. So, but when these forests are destroyed, what follows is destruction. Deserts in terms of barren land and also a societal collapse. It is saying that forests are the backbone of any prosperous civilization, and if we damage or lose them, the consequences will be severe. Thinking of it as a nature's warning. So, why do deserts follow civilizations? We know that when human activity increases, like when cities grow and industries develop, forests often bear the brunt. People cut down trees to clear land for agriculture or to build their homes. This is called deforestation, and over time, this weakens the environment. What happens next is that the soil, without the support of a tree's roots, starts to erode. Water resources also start drying up, and slowly fertile land turns into a barren land, a desert. A great example of this is happening in the modern times is the Thar Desert in Rajasthan. It wasn't always as big as it is today. Over time, deforestation and unsustainable land use made it grow. It's an ongoing problem in many parts of the world. In fact, around 30% of India's land area is currently undergoing desertification, according to reports. It is a sign that we are repeating the same mistakes as the past civilization. So what the important question here is, how can we stop this cycle from happening again? And the answer lies in the sustainable practices. First, we need to conserve and reforest the areas that are at risk. Governments and organizations are working towards this, such as India's Green India Mission aims to increase the forest cover. Reforestation is an essential practice because it helps restore the balance of the nature. We also require to manage our resources better. It's not enough to just plant trees. We also have to make sure that the way we use water, land, and other resources is sustainable. A great example of this is Chipko movement in India, where local women hugged trees to prevent them from being cut down. This movement emphasized the importance of forests in maintaining water sources and preventing soil erosion. Education and awareness are also very crucial. People need to be informed about how their actions like deforestation or overusing water can contribute to long-term problems. Once people understand this, they are more likely to take action, whether that is planting trees, reducing the resource use, or supporting policies that protect the environment. Topic from a historical perspective, we see that many great civilizations thrived because of the forest. For example, the Mauryan Empire, which was one of the largest empires in India, it thrived because of the abundance of forest. And even Emperor Ashoka, one of the greatest ruler of that empire, even passed a conservation law to protect forests and wildlife. He understood that forests were crucial for the empire's survival. Another example is the ancient Egyptians, who benefited from the forests along the Nile River. These forests provided them with wood, food, and resources for their daily lives. Without the forest cover, the fertile land along Nile might not have sustained such powerful civilization. This shows that civilizations that took care of their forests thrived, while those who didn't faced the consequences. Now, if we look at the current ecological crisis and what is happening in today's world, it is clear that we're facing similar lines of ecological crisis. Deforestation is happening at an alarming rate, and one of the most pressing examples is the destruction of the Amazon rainforest, also known as the lungs of the earth. The Amazon is very crucial for regulating the global climate and supporting biodiversity, but deforestation is threatening its very existence. The consequences of losing Amazon could be disastrous, not just for that particular region, but for an entire world. What we're seeing now is a global version of what happened to the past civilization. If we continue down this path, desertification, climate change, and ecosystem collapse would follow. This is a reminder that the warnings from the history should not be ignored. What can be done to prevent these ecological disasters? So in India, we have some great examples of forest conservation efforts. For instance, the National Afforestation Program and the Green India Mission are working to restore the forest cover and improve water management. These steps are in the right direction. The key takeaway here is that we must prioritize sustainable development because we can't keep growing at the expense of nature. Forests need to be conserved not only for us but for future generations as well. If we don't, we are heading towards the same fate as the past civilizations that lost their forests and eventually collapsed. Now, moving on to the next topic, the empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. So, this is the very topic that I discussed earlier, had an overlap with our Smash Essay Test series, and we did the brainstorming for it as well. Here, I'm going to discuss the topic again. So, a great example for this is the rise of Silicon Valley in the late 20th century. Silicon Valley isn't a country or a military power, but it's had a massive influence on the world. Companies like Apple, Google, and Microsoft didn't conquer land, but they've completely changed the global economy with their technology and ideas. These companies have created modern empires that rely on collective intelligence and innovations of their teams, showing us that how the future will be shaped by intellectual capital and not physical power. And what does empires of the mind mean? So basically, it is a metaphor that symbolizes how knowledge, creativity, and intellectual power will dominate the future world. These empires won't be about who controls the most land or resources. Instead, they will be about who controls the most innovative ideas, technological advancements, and scientific breakthroughs. For example, think about how artificial intelligence is rapidly changing industries today. Countries and companies that are investing in AI are becoming global leaders. Intellectual power is now becoming more important than physical resources. The countries or organizations that can lead the way in technology and innovation will essentially be building the empires of tomorrow. And now, why are these empires different from the traditional empires that we used to have? So, traditional empires focused on the physical dominance. That was the armies, the land, and the wealth control. But the empires of the future will be built on intellectual dominance. There's a shift happening from physical control to control over knowledge and information. Look at a company like Amazon. They don't rely on land or physical assets. Their power comes from data, algorithms, and intellectual capital. These companies, like Amazon, have a global reach through technology, impacting economies and cultures around the world without needing a physical empire. And if we look at the past, in the past, empires like the British Empire or the Ottoman Empire dominated by controlling large territories. Today, tech giants dominate by controlling information and ideas. This shift is clear that indication of how empires of future are different from the traditional ones. So how can we build these empires of the mind? So it starts with a crucial education and critical thinking. Societies that invest in education and encourage creativity are the ones that will be thriving in the future as well. We need to foster a culture where innovation is valued and people are encouraged to think out of the box. A good example of this is Bangalore in India, known as a big tech hub in India. It is a center of software development and IT services. The city didn't achieve this status because of physical resources. It became a global player because of the intellectual capital it nurtured. It's also a place where cross-cultural cooperation happens, with people from different backgrounds engaging with ideas and exchanging ideas and collaborating on projects. This kind of exchange is crucial for building the empires of the mind. Countries that focus on the research and development will also be at the forefront of this intellectual revolution. For example, the governments of South Korea and Finland invest heavily in research, which has made them leaders in technology and innovation. Now, if we look at the psychological dimension of this topic, so human creativity and intellectual curiosity are key drivers of success in today's world. In fact, creativity is what leads to the most groundbreaking innovations. Think of Tesla under Elon Musk. Musk didn't follow the traditional path of making cars. He revolutionized the industry by focusing on electric vehicles and sustainable technologies. His vision extended even further with SpaceX, where he's working towards space exploration. So Musk's empire is built not on conventional business practices, but on the power of ideas and intellectual foresight. This shows us that people or nations that adopt a growth mindset, where they constantly seek to learn and innovate, are the ones that will thrive in the future. History has also shown us ample examples, as discussed earlier, about the Ottoman Empire and the British Empire. Now, building empires of the mind doesn't come without challenges. There's a digital divide. Many developing countries don't have the same access to education and technology as more developed nations. This creates an intellectual gap that hinders progress. One solution is to promote continuous learning and ensure that access to education is available to all. Societies should also encourage open communication and collaboration across borders so that knowledge and technology can be shared. We should also support research and development by investing in mentorship programs and creating environments where new ideas can flourish. Next topic from section A is there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. So let's start by talking about the common misconception that happiness is something you achieve once you've met certain conditions, whether it's wealth, success, or a personal goal. An example of this can be Steve Jobs. Despite being incredibly successful and wealthy, Steve Jobs often reflected on how happiness wasn't in the material successes or the final product, but in the daily work and the process of creation itself and the journey itself. As Steve Jobs has famously said, that the journey is the reward. Now let's break down the meaning of the quote. Traditionally, people tend to think of happiness as something they can achieve in the future. I'll be happy when I get that promotion, or I'll be happy when I buy my own house, or I'll be happy when I clear that exam. This is the path to happiness mindset, where happiness is always tied to achieving a particular goal. But this quote flips that idea. Happiness is the path. This means that happiness isn't something you find after meeting certain goals. It's something you experience on the way, in the present moment. It's about finding joy in daily life and not just some endpoint. Happiness is a choice you make in how you live your life and how you react to things and how you appreciate what you have in the present. And why is this view important? It's important because we tie happiness to future goals. We often feel stressed and anxious or unsatisfied with the present moment. We think I'll be happy once I get that raise, or I'll be happy once I finish that degree. But this way of thinking often leads to disappointment, because when we reach these goals, the happiness we expect doesn't last long. We are left with chasing the next goal and the next milestone immediately. Finding joy in the journey is important because it brings inner fulfillment. Instead of constantly waiting for something better, you're able to appreciate what you have right now. Because focusing on well-being and present moment, you avoid the trap of always postponing your happiness for something. As many people say, happiness isn't a destination, it is a way of traveling. Now, how can one live by this thought? It starts by practicing gratitude, focusing on what we already have rather than what we lack. This shift in mindset allows us to appreciate the small joys in life. Every day offer moments of happiness, whether it is enjoying a meal, spending a time with your loved ones, or simply being mindful of the present moment. Another key part of this philosophy is mindfulness and meditation. These practices help us focus on the present instead of worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. When we're truly mindful, we are able to let go of external expectations and cultivate inner peace. Additionally, embracing personal growth and self-acceptance is very crucial. But letting go the need for external validation, we free ourselves to find happiness from within. Now, in today's world, many people equate success with material wealth. But research shows that this doesn't guarantee happiness. Take Jim Carrey, for example. Despite being one of the highest paid actors, he openly talks about how money doesn't equate to happiness. Similarly, Robin Williams and other successful actors struggle with mental health despite his achievements. Now, lessons from the philosophers and spiritual leaders also tells the same. So, throughout history, people have tried to define happiness as a goal to be reached, but this often leads to frustration. For instance, the Stoics have always believed that true happiness comes from accepting the present and letting go of the desire of external rewards. They understood that the inner peace, not material gain, leads to a fulfilling life. Similarly, spiritual teachings also often emphasize that happiness is a state of being rather than something to be achieved. In Buddhism, the concept of right mindfulness teaches us that happiness is found by fully being present and not attaching ourselves to the future desires. Sri Ravi Shankar also speaks about finding joy in the moment rather than expecting happiness from a future achievement. Our society also creates a culture of postponing happiness. So, some cultures, however, emphasize that well being is more crucial in the present. We can take Bhutan for instance. Bhutan measures its success not by GDP but by gross national happiness, focusing on the well being of its people rather than purely economic growth. This societal focus on happiness in the present rather than deferring it shows us a different way of living. Now, connection between happiness and nature is also there. Sustainable living also leads us to more peaceful and fulfilling life. Mahatma Gandhi's idea of simple living and high thinking is a perfect example here. Gandhi believed that reducing our desires and living in the harmony with nature would bring true happiness. This is in stark contrast with consumerism, where people often chase material goods in hope of finding happiness. Of course, adopting the mindset that happiness is the path isn't easy. Many of us face pressure from the society to meet certain expectations, such as buying a house or a professional success or reaching milestones. This external pressure can make it difficult to focus on the present happiness within. But there are solutions to help overcome this challenge. Mindful practices like meditation can help focus on the present. Practicing gratitude also shifts our focus away from the future goals and onto the joys of daily lives. Surrounding ourselves with supportive communities and relationship is another key factor in fostering happiness. Prioritizing emotional well-being and balance over material achievement will also help us lead to happiness. So, in all, the idea that there is no path to happiness, happiness is the path, teaches us that true happiness isn't found in achieving future goals, it is found in living mindfully, appreciating the present, and finding joy in the process of living. Whether we look at personal happiness, societal well being, or environmental harmony, the key is to focus on the present, not at some milestone distant. So, the last topic from section A was the doubter is a true man of science. So, let us start discussing an important anecdote that illustrates how doubt can lead to great scientific breakthroughs. One of the best examples is Albert Einstein. Einstein doubted Isaac Newton's long accepted ideas about gravity. He wasn't satisfied with the existing explanations and questioned the way space and time worked. His doubts led to the development of the theory of general relativity, completely changing how we understand the universe at present. This story is a perfect example that how doubt isn't a sign of disbelief or weakness in science, but rather the foundation of inquiry and discovery. Einstein's skepticism shows us that doubt is often the first step towards progress. Now let us break down the quote. The doubter is a true man of science. Here, the doubter refers to someone who questions what's accepted, someone who isn't satisfied with the surface level answers. This person always digs deeper, asking questions and looking for more evidences. On the other hand, the man of science is someone who follows a scientific method, using observations, experimentation, and critical thinking of finding the truth. So the main idea here is that doubt is essential to science. It's the people who doubt the status quo, who question established ideas, that push the boundaries of what we know. Without doubt, science would always stagnate. It's through the skepticism and constant questioning that we advance. So doubt is really at the heart of critical thinking. It fuels the curiosity and pushes scientists to investigate even further. If we didn't doubt, we'd just accept things as they are and never ask for new information. Take Richard Feynman as an example. Richard Feynman was one of the greatest physicists of 20th century, and he loved the process of discovery. He believed that the doubt and curiosity were the keys to finding things out, saying that the science is all about the joy of figuring out how things work. Without the curiosity, which is driven by doubt, we wouldn't have breakthroughs we see in science today. This ties to the idea of having growth mindset. Scientists, like everyone else, must be open to revising their beliefs when new evidence comes along. This is called intellectual humility. The philosopher Karl Popper said that science is all about trying falsified theories, meaning that true scientists actively seek to disapprove their own ideas. They doubt their conclusions and are always looking for much better explanations. Doubt doesn't just push us forward and our understanding forward, but it also drives innovation. For example, in 1970s, the most people thought that large centralized computers were the future, but engineers like Steve doubted this assumption. He believed that smaller, more accessible computers were possible, and this led to the creation of personal computer revolution. Another example that is relevant here is of Elon Musk and SpaceX. Many experts doubted that a private company could succeed in space exploration, but Musk questioned that belief. He doubted that the traditional methods of space travel and decided to innovate by making space travel more affordable and revolutionizing the entire industry. This shows us that questioning established paradigms often lead to massive leaps in technology. If we look back at history, we see that many of the greatest scientific revolutions began with a doubt. Galileo Galilei is a perfect example here. He doubted the long accepted theory of geocentric model, which said that the earth was the center of the universe. His doubts led him to support heliocentric model, which is placed uh, which placed sun at the center instead of earth. So, despite facing serious opposition even from the church, Galileo's doubts changed the way we understand the cosmos. The entire scientific revolution was born from a doubt. During Middle Ages, people accepted a lot of traditional knowledge without questioning it. But then came scientists like Isaac Newton or thinkers like Rene Descartes who doubted these ideas and began to challenge the old ways of thinking. This led to the birth of modern science, where empirical investigation and skepticism replaced blind acceptance of authority. Doubt isn't just important in the natural sciences. It also plays a huge role in the social sciences and cultural progress as well. Take Charles Darwin as an example. His theory of evolution by natural selection was highly controversial at the time. Religious institutions and much of the society doubted his ideas. But Darwin's doubt about the fixity of species led to one of the most scientific theories uh, in history, forever changing how we understand life on Earth. We also see the impact of doubt in social movements. For example, the feminist movement came from the doubting the traditional roles given to women in the society. By questioning these outdated norms, societies have evolved towards greater gender equality. So, in both science and society, doubt has been a force behind progress. Doubt leading to environmental solution is also one aspect that we can look upon. So in the 1960s, Rachel Carson doubted the safety and widespread use of pesticides, particularly DDT. At that time, no one questioned its use, but Carson's doubts led her to write Silent Spring, a book that sparked a modern environmental movement. Her skepticism about industrial practices led to stricter regulations on pesticides and a great awareness of environmental sustainability. Today, many of our sustainable technologies like solar and wind power were born from doubt. Scientists and engineers questioned whether our reliance on fossil fuels was sustainable in the long run. By doubting long-term viability of coal, oil and gas, they push for development of renewable energy technologies, which are now the forefront of the fight against climate change. Of course, embracing doubt isn't always easy. People who challenge established knowledge often face resistance. Think about scientists who questioned the health effects of smoking. In early days, those who raised concern faced pushback from both tobacco industry and some parts of the medical community as well. It's hard to challenge something that is so widely accepted, and it takes courage to go against the grain. But there are always ways to overcome these challenges. Critical thinking, education is a key. We need to teach future generations to question what they hear and to approach problems with a healthy level of skepticism. We should also encourage scientific inquiry where researchers feel safe to explore new ideas without the fear of censorship and punishment. Collaborations across disciplines can also foster new perspectives and challenge group thinking, allowing the science to progress even further. So, we have now seen examples throughout history and other dimensions where doubt has been a driving factor for more change. Now let us move towards section B. The first topic here is social media is triggering fear of missing out amongst the youth, precipitating depression and loneliness. So let us start with a real life example that highlights emotional consequences of social media. Back in 2018, Logan Paul, a popular YouTuber with millions of young followers, posted an extremely insensitive video from Japan's Aokigahara forest, a site which is known for suicides. His decision to upload such disturbing content showed how influencers often feel enormous pressure to stay relevant. In Logan Paul's case, the need to constantly produce attention grabbing content led to his poor decision making and emotional burnout. Even though he was a successful YouTuber, this incident showed the dark side of social media, where people feel the need to share sensational content to stay in the loop. This kind of pressure, experienced by both influencers and regular social media users, fuels the fear of missing out, or FOMO, which has become a big problem for today's youth. This often leads to depression and loneliness. The constant need of to be a part of everything and present an ideal life online is causing serious mental health challenges to the youth. So now, what exactly is FOMO? It is a form of anxiety that comes from a feeling like you're being left out or you're missing something important that others are experiencing. FOMO is a form of social comparison where we look at others' life and feel like we are falling short. Social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook makes this worse by showing us only the highlight reels of people's life, the vacations, the parties, the best moments. When we scroll through our feeds, we see all these perfect moments, and it can make us feel like we're not doing enough or that we are not as happy as others are. This constant comparison can lead to emotional stress and a sense of inadequacy, making us believe that everyone else is doing better in life and we are falling behind. So that's the idea of FOMO. And now we will be understanding how does social media trigger FOMO. Platforms like Instagram and Snapchat are built on the idea of constant connectivity. People share real-time updates of their lives, often posting only their best moments. This creates a false sense of reality because what we see is only the highlights and not the full picture. So social media often pressures people to participate in trends, events, or activities because if they don't, they feel like they're missing out. Take India for example. Many young people follow influencers and celebrities who display their luxurious lifestyles on social media. This creates a sense of pressure for them that they also have to do the same, and they have to be constantly involved in what is trending, whether it is traveling to exotic locations or buying the latest fashion. So this pressure leads to emotional burnout because young people feel the need to keep up when it's not even realistic. So how does FOMO lead to depression and loneliness? The emotional consequences of FOMO are very real. Constantly feeling like you're missing out on something can lead to feelings of low esteem and inadequacy. You start questioning your own life and wondering why it is not as exciting or glamorous as what you have seen on social media. This can lead to anxiety and stress over time, and this is one of a causative factor for depression. Another major problem is that social media creates social isolation. Even though we are more connected than ever before in the digital sense, but many young people feel disconnected in real life. This is because their focus shifts from building real relationships to maintaining an online persona of themselves. A 2017 survey by ASSOCHAM revealed that almost 73% of Indian teenagers felt anxious or depressed because of the excessive social media use. Despite being online and constantly engaging with people, they still feel isolated and lonely. This shows that social media is contributing to a growing sense of loneliness among young people. One of the biggest reasons social media triggers FOMO is because of its business model. So, all these social media platforms, be it Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, they are designed to keep you engaged for as long as possible. They use algorithms that push content that is likely to trigger an emotional response from you, whether that's envy, excitement, jealousy, or joy. In India, a study conducted by IIT Bombay found that young adults spend about 3 to 4 hours daily on social media platforms. These platforms encourage constant engagement through features like stories, live updates, and trends. The more you see other people's life and what seems like perfect life, the more you're likely to feel left out, leading to emotional exhaustion. A very well-known influencer in India, Dolly Singh, she has openly discussed how exhausting it can be to maintain her online persona. The constant need to post, to create something, and to keep up with trends took a toll on her mental health. This is true for many influencers and regular users alike. The pressure to be constantly to be in the loop leads to burnout and emotional stress. There is also a study by Tata Institute of Social Sciences that found that many young people in India reported feeling more isolated in real life despite spending hours on social media. This again proves the same point that they spent online the time spent online is replacing the time they will be spending with the friends or family, deepening their ties, and hence the feeling of loneliness is also widespread. Another key issue is that the overuse of digital platform detracts from the time spent in the physical world or the real world. Many young people are so engrossed in their phones and social media feeds that they miss out on real life experiences. In India, the rise of digital detox programs helping young people reconnect with their surroundings and reduce anxiety caused by the constant urge of social media engagement. For example, some universities in India are promoting digital detox days where students are encouraged to take a break from their devices and engage in offline activities. These events have shown significant reductions in the stress levels and improvements in mental health as students engage more with the world around them. Now, addressing this issue is easier said than done. Social media has become such an essential part of youth culture that not just for socializing but also for professional networking. Many young Indians use platforms like LinkedIn or Instagram for career building as well. So it can be hard for them to completely disconnect without feeling like they're missing out on something important. But there are ways to mitigate the negative effect. One solution is to practice mindfulness. Meditation, yoga, or simply spending time away from screens can help young people disconnect from the social media and the pressures along with it. Another solution is to set boundaries by limiting the time spent on social media platforms. It is also crucial to educate users on the curated nature of social media. What we see online is often far from reality. Lastly, fostering real life connections is also very essential. By spending more time with your friends and family, young people can counter the feelings of isolation that social media creates. So, in conclusion, this topic basically tells us that how FOMO amplifies, which in turn leads to depression and loneliness for many young people. The curated lives we see online are often unrealistic. By understanding the impact of social media, practicing digital well being, and focusing on real life connection, we can begin to reduce the negative effects of FOMO on our mental health. Now, moving on to the next topic. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but to test the character, give him the power. Now, uh, to explain this in the intro, an example here would be of Mahendra Singh Dhoni. So back in 2013, Indian cricketer MS Dhoni was found at the center of IPL spot fixing scandal. As the captain of Chennai Super Kings and one of the most influential figures in Indian cricket, Dhoni was under immense scrutiny. While many expected him to react publicly or to succumb to the pressure, Dhoni remained calm and composed and focused on his responsibilities as a leader. Even though he had immense power and influence, Dhoni's behavior during this period demonstrated that true character isn't always revealed when someone faces adversity, but when they hold power. So the power tests a person's integrity and reveals their true nature. So what exactly does this quote mean? So adversity here refers to the hardships or difficulties that people face. When people face adversity, it usually pushes them to survive and show resilience. But power is different. Power gives a person authority and control over others. It often reveals a person's true nature. When someone has power, we see how they choose to use it. Whether they use it to uplift others or whether they become arrogant or exploit other people for their personal gain. And that's where character comes in. Character is about moral qualities like integrity, honesty, and fairness. It's much easier to show resilience in tough times, but power can corrupt. Only those with strong character handle power responsibility. That is the core idea behind this quote. Power can also have a psychological effect on people. It often leads to corruption because of power, because power can change how people think and behave. A great example of this is Stanford prison experiment conducted by Philip Zimbardo in 1971. In this study, ordinary people were assigned roles as guard in a stimulated prison, and within days, these participants started abusing their powers. They became authoritarian and abusive, showing how quickly power can distort someone's moral judgment. When people have power, they can sometimes feel like they're above the rules or the ethical norms out there. In India also, we have seen cases like the Lalu Prasad Yadav case and the fodder scam. Once in power, he abused his position for personal gain and lost sight of the ethical standards that he once upheld. This demonstrates how power can weaken a person's moral judgment. Power doesn't always just test character in politics, but we see it too in the corporate world as well. When people rise to positions of power in businesses, their true character often comes out. A perfect example of this is Enroll scandal in 2001. The company's top executives, including the CEO Jeffrey Skilling, abused their power by manipulating financial statements. Their unethical decisions led to the collapse of the company and caused a significant harm to the employees and investors. This shows how power can corrupt even the most successful business leaders when ethical standards are ignored. On the other hand, we have leaders like Ratan Tata. Despite his immense power, Ratan Tata has always been known for his integrity and ethical leadership. He used his influence to improve the society and ensure that his business follow ethical practices. This contrast shows us that how power doesn't have to corrupt. People with strong character use their power for the greater good of the society. History also gives us countless examples of how power tests the character of people. One of the most famous cases is of the Napoleon Bonaparte. At first, Napoleon was seen as a revolutionary leader fighting for equality and justice. But as he gained more power, he became authoritarian, leading multiple military conquests that eventually caused his own downfall as well. This shows how power can corrupt even when the most visionary leaders, if they lose sight of their principles. In contrast, we have figures like Mahatma Gandhi. Despite having enormous influence during India's independence movement, Gandhi used his power with humility. He remained committed to non-violence and democratic principles, even when he had the chance to seize control. His leadership showed that power, when handled with moral strength, can uplift the humanity instead of corrupting it. In society, power dynamics often reveal people's true character, especially when it comes to social hierarchies. In India, we have seen how caste-based discrimination has been a long-standing issue, with those in higher caste historically using their power to oppress lower community. But when we have leaders like B.R. Ambedkar, who despite of his background used his power to fight for social justice, Ambedkar's commitment to uplift marginalized groups shows that true character is tested when someone has power. But we also see how power can be abused to perpetuate inequality. The Nirbhaya case is a tragic example of how individuals with social privilege can misuse their power to commit horrific acts. The public outrage that followed this case highlighted the need for power to be exercised responsibly in society to create justice and fairness. Power isn't just about controlling people, it is also about responsibility to protect the environment. Corporations and government hold significant power in shaping the world's future, and how they use power reveals their true commitment to the greater good. For instance, the Bhopal gas tragedy is the example of corporate power gone wrong. The Union Carbide Corporation failed to maintain the safety standards, leading to one of the most worst industrial disasters in the history. This negligence and abuse of power resulted in thousands of deaths, showing the devastating consequences of mishandling power. On the positive side, leaders like Narendra Modi have used their power to drive environmental change. Modi's push for renewable energy, particularly solar power, has made India a global leader in sustainable development. His use of power to promote green energy is an example of how responsible leadership can have a positive impact on the environment as well. Now, handling power with integrity is no easy task. Many leaders struggle to remain grounded once they have the authority. In India, we have seen political figures like Jayalalitha and A. Raja face accusation of abusing power for personal gains. This shows the challenge of staying morally grounded when faced with the temptations of power. But there are solutions to help and for the leaders to maintain their integrity. One approach is to provide ethical leadership training, teaching leaders the importance of values like honesty, transparency, and fairness. We also need to create transparent government systems that hold people in power accountable. Peer accountability can also play a key role, ensuring that leaders stay connected to their values and don't let power corrupt them. So, in conclusion, while adversity tests a person's resilience, power tests a person's true character. When people face challenges, many can show strength and survive, but when given power, only those with strong moral character can handle it with integrity. The next topic was all the ideas having large consequences are always simple. So now let us introduce the topic with an example of an engineer named Jan Quam. In 2008, he had a simple yet transformative idea to create a messaging app that allowed people to send texts over internet, bypassing the expensive SMS services. This idea gave birth to WhatsApp, an app with a straightforward design but revolutionary impact. Today, WhatsApp has over 2 billion users globally and has challenged how people communicate. It disrupted the telecom industry and transformed both personal and professional communication. This example shows us how the most impactful ideas are often the simplest ones. They resonate with the people because they are easy to understand and adopt, but their consequences can be enormous. So what does simple ideas mean here? A simple idea is one that is easy to understand and implement. It is often based on fundamental truths or common sense. Because of their clarity, these ideas can reach and influence a large number of people. When we talk about consequences, we are reflecting on the significant, far reaching effects these simple ideas can have on the society, technology, culture, and even the economy. So, the idea here is simple, that its simple ideas lie in its ability to be adopted and understood by many, which then leads to large scale challenges. Think of it in this way, that it is not about how complex an idea is, but how accessible it is. That makes it revolutionary. Now, why do simple ideas have such big impacts? The reason is that they are widely acceptable, applicable, and easy to implement. Simple ideas often touch on the fundamental truths that resonate across different cultures and time periods. They can be applied in diverse areas of life, making them more relevant and accessible for people. For example, take the concept of democracy. The simple idea that people should have the power to elect their leaders. While it's a straightforward concept, it has led to profound political consequences, transforming governments and societies worldwide. The simplicity of an idea made it easy for people to understand and rally behind, which is why it had such large consequences. There are countless examples of simple ideas that led to huge transformation. One of the most famous is the invention of wheel. It's a basic concept, but its introduction revolutionized transportation industry and human civilization as a whole. This simple tool changed how we travel, transport goods, and build infrastructure, proving that even when the simplest ideas can have the largest consequences. Another great example is Amazon. It started as a simple idea of being an online bookstore. Over time, this basic business model evolved into world's largest e-commerce platform, transforming how people shop and how businesses operate globally. What began as a straightforward idea completely disrupted the retail industry and set new standards for logistics and customer services. One of the most iconic examples historically is the printing press that was invented by Johannes Gutenberg. The concept was simple, mechanizing the process of printing, but its consequences were massive. The printing press led to the mass production of books, which made knowledge more accessible, ignited the Reformation, and played a key role in rise of literacy across Europe. Politically also, simple ideas can also spark revolutions. Take the French Revolution's motto, for example: liberty, equality, and fraternity. This simple yet powerful idea united people to overthrow the monarchy, establish a republic, and spread democratic ideals across the globe. The clarity and accessibility of this idea allowed it to resonate with a widespread audience, leading to profound political and social change. Simple ideas can also drive social changes. Look at the Me Too movement. The concept of the movement was pretty straightforward: to empower women to share their stories of harassment. Yet, this simple idea sparked a global movement, leading to significant social and legal reforms around gender equality and workplace safety. The simplicity of the idea of sharing experiences through a hashtag made it easy for people to participate, but its consequences were enormous because it reshaped the industries and changed the societal attitude towards gender based violence. Similarly, in India, Swachh Bharat mission was built on the simple idea of cleanliness. The concept Clean India was easy to understand and mobilized millions of people. This campaign led to a shift of how Indians view sanitation and hygiene, and it also sparked a national conversation about bringing a cultural change. While simple ideas can have large consequences, there are often challenges in getting them implemented. One example is, however, once it was adopted, the Aadhaar system had significant consequences for social welfare schemes and financial inclusion. To overcome these challenges, it is important to focus on communication and education, helping people to understand the benefits of simple ideas and encourage their broader adoption. So the last topic from the paper was, the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. So let us start with the real life example that perfectly illustrates this idea. That was in 1997, Kodak held a 90% market share in the film camera industry. They even invented the digital camera, but they were afraid of embracing digital technology because they thought it would hurt their film business. So they did nothing. Meanwhile, competitors like Canon and Sony jumped on the digital bandwagon. Fast forward to 2012, Kodak filed for bankruptcy because they didn't act in time. This story teaches us that sometimes the cost of doing nothing can be far greater than the cost of being wrong. It is a reminder that making mistakes can lead to valuable lessons, but inaction often leads to missed opportunities, stagnation, and long term failure. So, what does this quote mean? Being wrong means taking action, making decisions, or trying something new, knowing that there is a risk of failure. However, through these mistakes, we gain valuable insights that help us grow. On the other hand, doing nothing refers to avoiding decisions or actions altogether because of fear or uncertainty. While this may seem safer in the short term, it often leads to missed opportunities and stagnation. So, uh, being wrong may lead to short term costs, but doing nothing prevents progress and leads to long term consequences because missed opportunities cannot be recovered. One of the biggest reason people do nothing is the fear of failure. We often we are often afraid that if we make the wrong decision, it will reflect poorly on us or harm our chances of success. But in reality, the fear of making a mistake can be more damaging than actually making one. Think of entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. They both took massive risks in their careers, and yes, they experienced failure along the way. But each failure taught them something that is ultimately led to their long term success. In India, also, Dipender Goyal, the founder of Zomato, made several wrong decisions when his company was just starting. However, when he learned from those mistakes, and now Zomato is India's leading food tech companies. By embracing mistakes as learning opportunities, they showed that taking action is essential for growth. In the business and tech world, just like inaction can stifle innovation, there is another example of Nokia. At one point, Nokia dominated the mobile phone market, but when they hesitated to adopt the Android technology, this reluctance cost them dearly as they quickly fell behind competitors like Samsung. If Nokia had acted earlier, they might have restrained their market leadership, but their failure to take risk was far more costly than the risk of being wrong. In contrast, companies that embrace calculated risks have often succeeded, even if they face short-term failures. For instance, Paytm. They took a massive risk by investing in digital payments before demonetization. Initially, it wasn't clear if Indians would embrace cashless transactions, but that risk paid off. Today, Paytm is one of the largest digital payment platforms in India. We can also take examples from history, where a significant example of inaction is the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. World leaders failed to address the root causes of European tensions, and their inaction ultimately led to the outbreak of World War II. If bolder actions had been taken after the First War, perhaps the second war could have been prevented. This example shows that doing nothing can sometimes have catastrophic consequences. On the flip side, we also have examples of bold actions leading to great success. Take Abraham Lincoln, for example. During the American Civil War, he made the risky decision to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. Despite fears of backlash, his action helped redefine the nation and played a critical role in ending slavery. It's an example of how taking decisive action, even in uncertain times, can lead to monumental positive changes. Social movements also show us that the cost of doing nothing can be far greater than the cost of being wrong. Mahatma Gandhi and Subhash Chandra Bose took bold actions during Indian independence movement, even though they faced the potential of failure. Gandhi's Quit India movement, though not immediately successful, laid the groundwork for India's eventual independence. If they had done nothing, British colonial rule would have likely persisted much longer. When we talk about environmental issues, inaction is often the most dangerous option. Failing to address climate change today will lead to severe and irreversible damage tomorrow. For example, inaction on air pollution in Indian cities like Delhi has led to significant public health problems. If we continue to delay implementing measures to reduce carbon emissions, the cost will be much higher in the future, both economically and environmentally. On the other hand, small actions today can lead to large positive outcomes tomorrow. India's success with solar energy is a great example. The government took proactive steps towards renewable energy, and now India is a global leader in solar power. Taking action, even if there's uncertainty, can yield long term benefits for the environment. But there are real challenges, whether it's the fear of public criticism, financial loss, or simply not knowing the outcome. For example, India's Aadhaar project faced many legal and privacy challenges, but if the government had done nothing, millions of people would have been denied the access to essential services. This shows that despite the obstacles, the action is often a better choice. So, how do we overcome the fear of taking action? One solution is to encourage the culture of risk taking. When people see the mistakes as learning opportunities rather than failures, they're more likely to act. We can also promote incremental actions, taking small calculated steps instead of waiting for the perfect solution. Finally, building systems in governments, organizations, and communities can help encourage bold decision making. So, we have seen examples throughout history and other dimensions as well, be it environment, social, technological, that how stagnation can lead to missed opportunities. While taking actions, even if it leads to mistakes, drives growth, innovation, and change. This was the entire idea behind this topic. So that brings us to the end of our discussion. I hope today's discussion has helped you understand each of these essay topics, and we will be releasing the model answers for the same as well. Thank you.